Now at this point, I'm assuming you were able to download and install Visual Studio. So the next step is, once you have that done, we're going to create a brand new project. So let's do that. And it's extremely important that you choose properly here from these choices that we've got. Definitely Visual C++, but under here we want to do Win32. And under Win32 we want to do Win32 console, and we want to also be able to give it whatever name we want. Now I'm going to call this lab1 underscore 1 for lab1 program 1. Now once we do that, we can slide over here and say OK. And it's going to take us through some other things that we need to set up and set up properly. So we're going to say next, and under next we're going to get rid of the precompiled header, do the security development lifecycle, uncheck that, and check the empty project. And this is what we're going to do every time we create something in here. Now if we don't set this up properly, things such as scanf it's going to complain about and say that you need to use scanf underscore s. So if we do this properly, we'll be able to create everything from scratch with no problems at all. Or when you create your new project, one of the things you may find is part of this screen that you need is going to be gone. So what you're going to have to do is go up to View, because just about everything is going to be built from what's called the Solution Explorer. And you can use Control W to actually bring it up, but let's bring that up and back up, and usually it shows over here on the right hand side of our screen. So let's zoom in on what it looks like here, and notice here that we have no source files. So if we right mouse click here, we can add a new item, and under new item we have a couple of choices here. One is a C++ file and the other is a header, and we're just going to say C++. Now if we back out here a little bit, you can even see that we can change the name from source.cpp to something else, but I'm just going to add it as it is. And you'll see it shows up here, and what we have on the screen is basically now a new place to actually type in all of our code from scratch. So when you're finished, your program code should look something like this. And what I've done, and what you should do every time, is you should create a proper programmer's block with a title for your program, your name under author, your student ID, your program code of PRG255, and whatever your lab section happens to be, the date, and a description. Now all I did for this description was I actually just copied and pasted it from the PDF file that was our lab. So you can actually just clean it up a little bit here, move things around a little bit like this to make it look a little more professional. So this is what you should have for every program that you're going to do. Now the include section that's here, standard io.h is used for printf, scanf, and getchar. Standard lib.h is used for the system command, which later we'll use to clear the screen. But we've got pretty much all of our code that we need here. Now one of the things you should be aware of when you're programming in C, variables must come first. In C++ it doesn't care. You can say for, integer, equal, you can do all sorts of stuff there. But when you start programming small microcontrollers that are in C, you definitely have to make sure your variables come first. Now this is pretty much the implementation of what we want. Now I'm just going to back out here a little bit, and what I'm going to do is go up to build. Now build can be executed, if we take a look at it a little bit closer here, with F7. So at any time we want to build, we can just hit F7 and it's going to build. So let's select build here, and down at the bottom, if we take a look, it's going to basically tell us whether or not everything's okay. Now if you get an error down here that says something about scanf is an issue instead of build one succeeded, then you haven't really set up the project properly, and you should go back to the start of the video, look at it again, and make sure you set it up properly, and then just copy and paste the stuff in here. So everything seems fine. So let's go scrolling up to the top. Now after we've done the build, we want to do a debug, which is F5. So we can either select it from here or just hit our F5 button. So let's take a look so we can see a little better. And what it's saying right now is it's saying enter your mark. So I'm going to type in 44, and it says 44 is a failing mark. And notice we've got some funny stuff happening here, so we're going to have to do some corrections. Now if we put in a -4, it will terminate and drop us out. And some of the things that we forgot to do in here was, after say is a passing grade, we should actually put in a \n. So it goes to a new line instead of putting everything on the same line. So that's one little error. So let's do that again. Let's do F7 and let's do F5 again. And again, it's going to come up. Let's take a look again. 44, that's a little better. If we do 60 right on, that's okay, it's a passing grade. If I do 59, it's not quite right. If I do -4, it's going to drop out, and everything seems to be working quite well here. So this program will solve the problem that we've got, but what happens if we wanted to have not integers, but we want to use float? So let's see what we'd have to change there. Let's change float. Whoops. Let's change this to float. And if we have float marks, the other thing we have to do is change some of these other things. So let's zoom in a little closer here. And so instead of %d, we're going to have to say %f. %f. And when we're doing this here, we want to print it out maybe with a couple decimal points. So let's make this say 4.2. Make this also 4.2f. And let's recompile that with F7. Make sure everything's good. Let's back out so we can see what's going on here. And it said build one succeeded, so let's hit F5 again. And let's take a look and see what's going on now. Let's close in a little bit up here. Take a little closer look at our output here. So if I do 59.4, it's going to say 59.4 is a failing mark, 59.999, and it's going to say 60 is a failing mark because we're not displaying it to the right number of digits, only to 2. So if I said 59.99, it would say 59.99 is a failing grade. And again, if we do -1 or minus anything, it's going to drop us out. And here's a program that works quite well. Now, one of the other things that you might want to do is you might want to take your output of your program and embed it in here as a comment. Okay, if we want to capture our output, we just have to hit F5 and bring up our stuff. And let's take a look. Let's type in 0. So 0.0 is not a valid one. 59.99, as we said before, is a failing grade. But 60.00 is a passing grade. Now if we want to save this kind of output, now if we put a negative value, it's going to close the window, and that's not good. So we're just going to right mouse click on the bar up here and say edit and mark. Once we do that, let's just grab this stuff here and again go back up to this bar, right mouse click and say under edit, let's copy. Once we've done that, it's able to be pasted. Now we can at this point just put in a -4 here to close our window. But what we can do is slide down to the bottom of our program here and put in a \* and in between these comments we can just do a Control V, and there's our output.